Good living people. Today you're gonna hear about Saved like Fairy Tale. Yep, you heard that right. So, why do we like stories? Why? Tell, listen, and read them. Well, we can relate to stories at some point. They hold certain values that you too deem important. Apart from entertainment and escape the reality purposes, stories teaches us a lot. Some inspire us, empathize with us, become a companion who allow us to witness their journey or an adventure. So, I have a story briefed for time reduction purposes that tells us how listening to stories saved a kingdom and stopped a war. There was once a king. Well, it's a fairy tale after all, who had three sons. Three of them doesn't seem to pay any interest in their country, people, or the king. The king had tried everything known to him to change his son's attitude and interest, but nothing worked. Ever since the queen passed away, they have changed. Yeah, you guessed it right. It's all because there is no one present. Even the queen's troop vanished. The queen had once told the king about the monk living in the woods who takes care of wayward children. He wondered for a minute if the queen had guessed this would happen. He didn't send the princess because he would miss his children too much. While he was pondering over this, there was a war between his neighboring two countries, which he didn't want to be a part of. After the assassination of the queen, the country had just stabilized, so he promised to not start a war with either of the countries and close the border while maintaining the merchant line open. It was a risky thing to do, but he had to do it. Also, taking this chance, his sons were sent to learn from the monk. The princess spent the time with the monk, reluctant at first, creating disturbance and being generally a nuisance. The monk didn't do anything but explain the consequence of their actions to them. The monk doesn't have any grand lessons, but he tells stories, all the grand tales as well as the small ones. The disinterested princess got hooked on the stories because there was nothing else to do and even made few friends. Now, time for a time skip. 5 years later, the neighboring kingdom's war is coming to an end. They are now starting to eye this kingdom mainly because of the resources and because the three princesses are absent from the capital. The queen had an allied too, but most outside the kingdom had forgotten that fact. The king heaved a sigh. He wished to see the princess at least once before the war started. As if divined, the princess arrived. After knowing the situation of the kingdom, they came back home. They prostrated at the king's feet as per their custom. The king was touched and hugged his three sons. Then they talked about the country situation. On the way over, they had certain plans that was discussed and they refined those plans here. All they needed was to know what the enemy had known. One of the people they befriended was already on that job. The plan began to take shape. They invited the neighboring kingdom for peace talks. The neighboring kingdom accepted the invitation as a respite from war while remaining vigilant. They opened the border. The queen's troop that arrived just in time was placed in the most obvious position and were allowed to flex. The first prince took the overall command while staying hidden. The second prince acted as a strategist. The last prince was active in the field. He was in charge of welcoming the troops. He did his role of praising his soldiers and his king, and he showcased both his strength and the strength of the allied troops who were working with him. The opponent team began to question the intelligence of their spy network because they have been expecting the prince to make trouble, but instead he had been acting gracefully, if a bit childish. Until they returned to the palace, the third prince kept praising the second prince while intentionally leaving out the first prince. There were shows performed before reaching the palace. The acts of the children stole the heart of the people, while the villagers showcased their strength and how they were faithful to the king. In the palace, except for the first prince, everyone were present and both the team dined and gathered info on each other. While the public still doubted the princess, the emergence of the allied troop and their faith in the king didn't force them to act out. Throughout their stay in this kingdom, the whispers they heard and the things they have seen severely changed the enemy's perspective. On the seventh day, negotiation talks were held and talks about how, even if they win the war, lives will be lost and how there might be huge riot because they must have seen how the people love their king and how the queen's allied troop has returned and how they have resources to continue the war. They finally decided on a 2 out of 3 fight. The one who won to fight will be the winner of the match and the war. The first was the youngest turn. He won the match. The second was the middle child. He lost the match. He was mostly a strategist. The third was the mysterious first prince. He won the match. Although the opponents were beaten to pulp until they accept the surrender, their lives remained intact. After the victory, instead of gloating, the three princes stayed humble. The opponent kingdom will pay tax to this kingdom, but only after 3 years. This is to recover from the war. If the princess of the opponent kingdom wishes, she can marry any one of the princes after 2 years to strengthen the bond between two countries. Ta-da! The war had stopped and kingdom saved. Obviously, this tactic won't work in every situation. We have few trump cards. First, the opponent kingdom just finished war. Even though their morale is high, resources low. Second, they know Queen's allied troop is powerful but didn't know where they are now, or even if their number had doubled. Third, the princes themselves became a hidden card. The humble attitude of the prince and the people's support of the king, and the changing weather, so on and so forth. Now, for the reason you are watching this video. So, how does storytelling figure into all of this? Let me lift the curtain. Remember, they stay with the monk. Few of the regular stories made an impact on the prince, but what every one of them loved are Mahabharatam and Ramayanam. Through Ramayana, they understood first, a leader must take responsibilities for the action, and second, the power of information. Anyone who knows Ramayana wanna guess who is the power of information? I will give you a few seconds to guess. Yes, it's Vibhishnan. He practically listed the weak points of his brother's troop, which character had what kind of power, the attack pattern, so on. Without Vibhishnan's help, Rama would have gathered quite a few losses. And the third would be having friends who can aid in war. From Mahabharata, first, they learned how even if you win the war, you can lose everything. None of the Pandavas' children were alive at the end of the war. Only a grandchildren survived, and that too by the interference of Lord Krishna. Second, you need a cunning strategist like Lord Krishna to thwart the tactics of Sagini. Without Krishna, the Pandava would have lost much more. With these teachings in mind, the three princes, when returning to the kingdom, along with the people who pledged to help, they acted out. Thus, like in fairy tales, the damsel in distress, aka the whole kingdom, was saved. Look at this! Stories can indeed change people. Every character has an impact on your life. Books should be like friends, few and good. Even in the acquaintance you have for fun, and books you read for pure entertainment have an impact, however minuscule it may be. I hope I have managed to convey that stories can impact our life. Even if you take children's story, it can be applied even when you're old, because for certain problems, the solutions have always been simple. For example, if you're able to shed your ego and say sorry and thank yous, lots of relationship problems will be solved. Or remember how to get up after falling down. So, this was a happy for now story. Since the three princes are ready now, there are of course few mysteries they have to solve. The queen's assassination. Where did the allied troop go? How did they emerge at the right time? Where did the princess learn to fight? The origin of queen and her troops. Who are the friends of the prince? And why must the trade route stay open? And so on. But these are to be answered in another story with different title. Until then, take care of yourself now. This is the beginning of my storytelling journey, so I would like to hear your comments. It means a lot. Is this the end or is it to be continued?